Hey guys, Rick Stone here from the blog Our Stony Acres and the Online Gardening School. Welcome to 5 Minute Fridays, my video series where I try and give you a valuable gardening tip in 5 minutes or less. Today we're not going to quite make the 5 minutes because we've got some important stuff to talk about, but we're going to be close. All right, before we get started today, if you would please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, or if you're watching this on Facebook, make sure you like my Stony Acres Facebook page. Also, make sure you go check us out on Instagram. We're just getting started there at Our Stony Acres on Instagram, so we'd love your support there as well. Okay, so this video is actually a couple of years in the making. I've wanted to film it for a couple of years, and different situations have just prevented me from doing it, and you can only do it once a year. And so this year I've finally gotten around to it, and we're going to talk today about thinning peaches on your peach tree. So here's my peach tree. This is a 5-year-old peach tree. You can't see it all here, but I'll do some cutaway videos so that you can kind of get an idea of the size. 5 years old. It's been producing fruit now for 3 years, and this year is actually one of the biggest load of fruit that we have seen on this tree because we've had kind of the perfect spring conditions. We didn't have any frost later on in the year and a nice wet spring, and this tree is just loaded right now with peaches. And so we're excited for a good year of peaches. Last year was a little thin. This year we're actually hoping for a lot of peaches on this tree. But we need to thin the peaches. And let's talk, before we actually talk about how to thin them, let's talk about why. So there's two reasons. First and foremost, as you can see, my tree is a dwarf variety, so it's never going to get a lot bigger than it is right now. And with this many peaches on the tree, it would absolutely be crushed by the weight if I were to let all of these peaches grow and start to mature on this tree. By the time July and August came around, it would literally just tear this tree apart because it's smaller, and it would just tear it apart. There would be too much weight load. So that's the first reason why you want to thin your peaches, is just to manage the weight load on your tree. The second reason is, you can see the canopy and the leaf canopy. There's only so many leaves to go around. And if you have a lot of peaches on your tree, the energy that the tree is producing and the sugars that the tree is producing from the leaves, it gets spread out to all of the fruit. And if you've got too many fruit on there, you're just diluting all of that energy and all of those sugars. And so what you'll get is a bunch of little small fruit that are mostly pit and aren't very tasty. They won't be as sweet. So we thin so that we have larger fruit. We're going for, we want baseball or bigger sized fruit on these trees, and we want sweet fruit. And so if you thin, you're going to get both of those. If you don't thin, there's too much fruit load on the tree, and you'll get smaller, less tasty fruit for sure. So you want to make sure that you thin down to a good spacing so that you have a good, sweet, nice size fruit on your tree. So this tree is a smaller tree. It's probably only going to handle 50 to 60 fruit at maturity, maybe 70. So we'll kind of see how it works out. But most years I get a bushel is all from this tree, and so we want to manage that fruit load so that we have good, tasty fruit. So let's talk about the rule for thinning. First off, when do you thin? The best time to thin is when your fruit are between dime size and quarter size. And so that's usually later on in the spring. For us, it's a couple of weeks after our last frost. And so that's a good idea, a good target time for when to thin. When they get to about that quarter size or even smaller is when you want to start thinning. Now, the rule is this, and it's not hang loose, it's 6 inches. Okay, so we want to space on this tree our fruit to be about 6 inches, and this is usually, for most people's hands, this is a good judge of about 6 inches. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule, because you are occasionally going to see fruit that the tree is favoring. So you may see, for example, right here, see how we've got these two fruit close together? Well, this one is just a little bit bigger than this one. And so the tree seems to be favoring this fruit. And so I'll want to leave that one and not this one. Now, there may be times where the spacing doesn't quite allow, the 6-inch spacing doesn't quite allow you to choose the fruit that's being favored by the tree. And so in that case, you may want to break the rule, the 6-inch rule. But for the most part, you want to keep that spacing of about 6 inches between fruit. Now, that rule only applies along an individual branch, okay? So we're not talking between these 2 branches. You don't have to have 6 inches. Unless you've got 2 fruit that are very close together on different branches that could possibly rub together when they're mature. You don't want that. So you don't want fruit ever rubbing together, because that causes damage to the fruit and therefore some possibility to introduce pests and things like that to that fruit. And it'll also make it ripen funny if they're rubbing together as well. So you want to, but really your 6-inch spacing is dealing mostly with an individual branch. Now, you're going to have shorter branches like this one, for example, that that branch is only 6 inches long to begin with. And so this branch may only be able to handle 1 fruit, okay? Now, another thing that you want to keep in mind when you're thinning your fruit is you want to pull these off, and I'll try and do a close-up video as well. This branch has 4 on it. I think the only one I'm going to keep is this one right here. When you're thinning, you want to pull up the branch, okay? You don't want to pull down, because that introduces the possibility of you tearing the bark. And if you pull down, you could tear the bark away, and then again, you've damaged the tree. So you want to pull, when you're thinning, you want to pull up like this, up and away. Instead of down the branch, you want to pull up like that, okay? And then basically all you need to do is just go through and use that spacing. And you can also give them just a little bit of a twist. That'll help them to come off. And space your fruit out so that it's 6 inches apart. Now you can see I've got a lot of fruit. I've got big old clumps of fruit, and so I've got a lot of thinning that I'm going to do. So to show you the damage, when I'm done, I'll take a picture and I'll insert it right here of how much fruit I actually removed from this tree. It hurts. Okay, this is one of the hardest things to do in the garden, is to thin, especially for me, thinning fruit trees, because it hurts. You feel like you're committing a sin or something by thinning all of this fruit, but you have to do it. If you don't thin, then the fruit load and the weight and everything on this tree will just be too high. You'll have a poor finished product and you'll damage the tree. So thin everything to about 6 inches. And again, there may be some exceptions, like on this branch, I'm probably going to thin right here. I'll leave this one, but this one looks really nice, but it's not quite 6 inches. But this is a whole big clump down here, and so I may leave this one and not these, and then move on down the branch. So the 6-inch guide is kind of just a rough guide, but that's basically what you want to do. And so I'm going to take a lot of fruit off of this tree and leave a good balanced load that the tree can handle. So hopefully that helps. If you have questions, please ask them down in the comments below. I'm happy to answer those. And that's, I think, all I have for this week. Enjoy this and get it done. Now, here's one question I know is going to happen. What if I've already passed the quarter stage, and is it too late to thin? It's never too late to thin. The longer you wait, the more energy the tree has put into producing the fruit that are there, but still you need to thin. Okay, so if you're late, thin anyways, because you got to get rid of all the rubbing fruit. You got to get rid of that weight load, and the sooner you thin, the more the tree will be able to treat those fruit the way it should. So even if you're late, even if they're bigger than quarter size, you still want to make sure that you thin the tree. All right? Okay, that's all I have for this week. Everybody have a great week. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up. If you're watching this on Facebook, make sure you like my Stony Acres Facebook page. Also, please go over and check out the online gardening school at www.onlinegardeningschool.com. We've got some really fun stuff going on there, including a monthly membership where we're going to have some really fun stuff happening, and that will be coming up very soon. So go over and check that out as well. I'll leave a link down below. All right, everybody have a great week. Happy gardening.